And many of us in this room, probably everybody in this room, has been calling for an independent risk assessment of this very impactful project. And it was clear from all of our meetings and communication with the various agencies involved that they're not always discussing this issue with each other. We have the NRC, Nuclear Regulatory Commission. We have the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. We have the EPA. We have the Federal Department of Transportation. We have the Public Service Commission of New York. We have the New York State DEC. And not all of them are on the same page and discussing this project together. And that's why we're calling for this independent risk assessment so that we know that if this happens, that it will be safe for our community and for the health of our residents. And until that's done, we're going to keep fighting this. At the end of the day, they may say that this is not a good project. Now, Paul Blanch has taken on a vital role in analyzing this project and offering serious critiques of the NRC evaluations. And Paul is, I'm going to give you a little background on him. He's a professional in the nuclear field, 45 years is nuclear power experience, a Navy submarine reactor operator and instructor, has a degree in engineering, professional engineer, Westinghouse Engineer of the Year, participated in the design of the Millstone and Connecticut nuclear plants, 3 Mile Island expert witness, and it just goes on and on and on. He's really had a wonderful background in this area, and so we're calling upon him today to discuss a lot of issues with us.
I'm going to read two statements right now that will probably provoke some controversy, and I'm going to read these two statements to the NRC also. From the NRC, I expect we all know that they absolutely refuse to come up here and have a professional dialogue with experts, and the only way they would do it would be a phone call. Most people are aware I've been involved with the gas pipeline and the risk associated with the gas pipelines to Indian Point since I was working as an expert witness for the Attorney General for the state of New York on the relicensing of Indian Point. But I tried to do my best, and I was told basically it was not my business to worry about the safety, and it's a security issue, and we're not going to give you any answers to your question. This was 2009, 2010. So when the new proposed pipeline came in, was proposed, I started looking at some of the data and saw some shortcomings, to say the least. So I filed a petition, and I filed a formal petition with the Nuclear Regulatory Commission related to a submittal that Indian Point had made to the NRC dated August 14th, 2014. And now the following I'm going to read, and I'd like people to listen carefully and ask questions after I read these two statements. My petition alleged that Entergy provided inaccurate and incomplete information to the NRC. Not only was the information provided inaccurate, it was materially false. That's a strong statement I can support. With respect to the 3-minute closure time. Material in that Federal Energy Regulatory Commission based its approval on the entire project on this false information. This alone should be a firm basis for granting my petition. I allege false information was provided, and we have NRC documents that I'll show, if necessary, that says it was false information. These facts are discussed in the NRC's email dated April 27th of this year. The NRC, in defense of Entergy, recalculated the impact of a prolonged gas discharge by modifying its equation for the, I call it the pressure impact radius. I'm not sure what the proper name it is, but this, by the way, is interesting. This is the second time in the last 5 years that Entergy has been exposed for making false statements to regulatory agencies. I was involved in Vermont Yankee and some of the litigation that was going on there. And Entergy, in the litigation associated with Vermont Yankee, made a false statement about radioactive material in buried pipes. And they were sanctioned severely, and the vice president who made that statement, I don't believe works for Entergy. The second statement I'd like to make is the NRC has threatened the safety of more than 20 million residents and the infrastructure of the greater New York metropolitan area, and risking trillions, and I do say trillions, of dollars of damage and possibly the U.S. economy by basing its safety assessment on a calculation that was recently obtained from the NRC under the Freedom of Information Act, another exhibit I'll have here. This new information confirms that the NRC calculation, which is in quote, was partially handwritten, unapproved, undated, unsigned, used fictitious, false, and unsupported assumptions. I can support every one of those words. This NRC calculation supported the FERC approval of the AIM project and the transportation of thousands of tons of TNT equivalent across the vicinity of Indian Point nuclear power plants. This back-of-the-envelope type calculation, which misled congressional representatives, FERC, and the general public, must be invalidated, and an independent, transparent, structured risk assessment, as outlined in the OSHA methodology, must be undertaken. The common thing that we're all saying is we need independent, transparent risk assessment conducted for the entire risk of the gas line and its impact on the environment and the people. Susan, what did I do here? Okay. Whoop. Okay, this shows an aerial view of Indian Point. I did go out and buy a laser, so see which one's a laser, which one's a pen. Yeah. This basically shows the new path of the 42-inch gas line going out here. The yellow line are the existing gas lines crossing Indian Point, and this will be the connection point for the two lines. These lines right here show different radii from, one could postulate an explosion anywhere along this line or anywhere along this line. If there's an explosion in the existing line, it's about 480 feet from the Indian Point Unit 3 structure, which is located right here. If we postulate an explosion in here, which is 105 to 115 feet from these vital structures, this being the diesel generator fuel oil tank and the switch yard. The NRC admits that if we have a rupture in this area, that these two components, the gas turbine fuel oil tank and the switch yard, will essentially be wiped out by the radiant energy in the blast. Wiping out the switch yard is one of the major contributors to core damage, according to the NRC calculation. But not only do we wipe out the switch yards, which supplies all AC power from off-site, we also wipe out the gas tank for the diesel generators. Now, I'll be the first to admit that the diesel generators have their own independent oil supply and will run for a few hours. However, the decay heat from, what's the matter? What did you do to me? The decay heat from the reactor will last for months, if not years. We still have sufficient decay heat from Fukushima, which happened in 2011, which still requires cooling. Now, I mentioned, And by the way, the radii of these circles, I believe this one is about 1,000 feet. This one might be 1,500, 2,000 feet. But you can see that a blast in this area would go, even if we assume this is 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 feet, we have calculations that show that the pressure impact radius will range anywhere from 800 feet, which is a number FERC came up with, and if one uses the NRC calculation or some of their references, it goes up to 8,000 feet. And this is why we need an independent assumption. I'm not a gas expert, but I can follow a simple equation, and I calculate somewhere in the range of 3 to 5 to 8,000 feet as the blast radius, the destructive blast radius. I said I had information. One thing I've been very good at is filing Freedom of Information Act requests, and this is one of them that I filed, and this is a response from the NRC. And we can see this is actually the NRC's analysis of the risk to 20 million people. This is what they gave me. This is incredible. I work for utilities, and I was cited with a violation at one time because I didn't sign it on time, and I was issued a violation. Here we have the NRC conducting a calculation that impacts more than 20 million people. And if you look through this calculation, there is no date, no author, no approval, no procedure. There's only one reference in here, flammable gas ingress. That means unburned gases coming into the plant, blowing up ductwork and so on. There's no cloud, vapor cloud discussion. And the NRC conveniently changed the calculation from their own guidance, and I'll try to point this out. The actual calculation in the regulatory guide, for those of you who can see it, is this right here, where the distance equals 45 times the weight equivalent in TNT raised to the cubed root. I know that's beyond many of us. But for some reason, they introduced this new term into the equation, which is not in the reg guide. Now, this could change the outcome by a factor of 1,000, but the NRC won't even discuss why this factor is in here. So the NRC modified its own equation. So this, they can do whatever they want, and they do a lot of bad things. They did not analyze a lot of potential situations, such as a jet fire and a vapor cloud. Now, how do I go back to this? The other important document I have is when I said that the NRC told, or Entergy told the NRC that these valves in the gas flow would stop in 3 minutes. This is an actual NRC internal email dated April 27th of this year that talks about what Entergy said in their analysis and what other people have said. And we can see that here's from a National Transportation Safety Board study relative to the San Bruno explosion. What this basically says is that if a gas explosion occurs, one is not going to detect it without visual confirmation. Visual confirmation is one driving along the road and seeing a 600-foot flame. Visual confirmation is a control room operator goes outside and says there's an 800-foot flame. That's visual confirmation. Thank you, Amy. We talked to an operator, he wasn't even aware of the existence of the gas line. Anyway, this does confirm that rather than 3-minute termination, it's going to take hours to terminate the gas. Hours terminating the gas is going to cause more destruction. I wish I had more time. We can continue later. You'll hear a lot of this stuff in the meeting, but what I'd like to do now is try to respond to any questions and real.
Thank you for your presentation and your service, your advocacy for safety of the public. Seems clear to me and anybody paying the least bit of attention that Entergy is concerned only with their own profits and power and existence, and that the NRC serves to carry water for them and to continually lower safety standards, including wiring in case of a fire from 1 hour to 23 minutes, I believe. And that's expected. But what's not expected is the silence of our elected representatives to speak out on this issue and to make their voices heard to protect 20 million people and not serve this relative few. I called the office of Senator Schumer, Chuck Schumer, this morning, and was told by the Washington, D.C. office after much problematic dialogue that a representative would be sent to this meeting.
Yes, he's here.
And I wonder if they have any. I wonder if they have any words for the public about how the senator will represent us and the people who live around here in this state rather than apologizing to the NRC.
Yeah, I'd like to just comment. I thought that was a very good question, but we have personally met with Senator Schumer's office and Senator Gillibrand's office and Congresswoman Lowy's office and asked for this independent safety or risk assessment with essentially zero results. We're getting nowhere with these two senators, and I think that was a good question, and I think that everyone deserves an answer why we aren't getting an answer from the senator's office.
It's 2:27.
I would just like to remind all of you, I think we need to stop so we can get on the phone with the NRC. They are going to be in the King of Prussia